This is Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
Hey, I'm Josh Haynes. Charles, it is a new episode of SPM. That is Cents Per Mile for you older people. That's a abbreviation. Is that the word is? Hey, you were mentioning you didn't understand lingo from your kids, so I was making sure you understood.
Man, that was crazy. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But actually, let's just hop into it right now.
All right. Tell me the story.
I went into my son's phone. He was telling me, a girl was texting him. I was curious. He always gives me one-word answers. So I was like, hey, give me your phone. I look, and I couldn't understand anything. I kept having to ask him, what's this mean? What's this mean? It was embarrassing and kind of humbling all at once.
I mean, that would have fit better if that would have happened in our driving, the aging population episode. But that's not what this episode is about today. What is today's episode about?
It's not a job seeker's market, and we're going to discuss why.
I mean, that's pretty spicy. It's going to be a little spicy. Before we get into all that spiciness, we are on iHeartRadio, Apple, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, everywhere. Check us out, rate us, as well as we are on YouTube. Jump on there, subscribe. It helps the channel. What else can they do, Charles?
You know what else helps the channel? Go into centspermilepodcast.com, where you can submit a topic to be a guest or to join in as a sponsor.
Who is our sponsor for today's episode?
We got TAFS. You should definitely check them out at TAFS.com. They make factoring fun, and they get you your money fast. If you're looking to expand your business, you need capital and you need your money, and you need it now. So check TAFS out.
As well as we have FreightWaves F3 coming up, which I think we have a nice little discount. You want to explain a little more about that?
Yeah. So, it's always fun with the FreightWaves team. No bias there. They know how to throw a killer party, and it's right here in my hometown in Chattanooga. So there's tons of content, tons of great experiences. You get to meet a lot of the new freight tech that's coming into the industry, and you get to learn a lot from the people that cover it all. So you should definitely check them out. Hit that QR code, get your discount, save a little bit of money in this economy. And we'll see you in Chattanooga.
All right, so it is time to move on, and it is time for 10-2 News. So our first article coming up is about Driver Appreciation Week. And before I get into the article, I wanted to ask your opinion, Charles. Why is it only a week and not a month?
Oh, why is it a month and not a year? It should be all year, every day. The job's not easy. We should be showing appreciation each and every day for the people that choose to do this job every day.
I 100% agree with you, and that will be the only time I agree with you. I do agree because the article is talking about Racetrack is celebrating Truck Driver Appreciation Month. See, they put month right there, with free coffee, pizza, burgers, all the good things they've got all month long. They've got like free hot coffee, Celsius energy drinks, free hot dogs, pizza, breakfast sandwiches, and cheeseburgers. The only thing I thought was a little weird is the fact that they're only doing like one per week and one per month on some of these. But I got to say, I appreciate that. And I know you've been to some, we'll say, unnamed carriers, as well as I have, filming videos on driver appreciation, and there ain't no driver there, and there ain't no appreciation there.
So this is really cool. You know what makes this cool is because when you're doing the barbecue at your terminal, you're feeding the office staff, you're feeding your shop, you're feeding maybe a couple people that came through orientation. Hopefully, we'll talk about that a little later. But this is where they can actually get the items that are being presented out as a small token of appreciation. And if everyone took this approach, every turn that they made, there'd be a new area that they could look to receive some of that appreciation on this week and this month, and should be on a more regular basis, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother episode. This is more accessible to the drivers, and Racetrack did a good job about putting this out there in enough time so the drivers can look for this stuff during the month of September.
Yeah. So carriers, if you're out there and you're listening, maybe think about doing something all month long Or like Charles said, all year long, where, you got your driver stopping in, maybe give them something a little special. But I'll pass you on to the next article. Charles, what do you got for us on 10-2 News?
So 7-Eleven is expanding their 7-fleet diesel network to over 500 locations in 2025. This is a very awesome achievement on them. We need more locations. We need more truck parking. We need more areas for them to stop and get items to eat, to work. 7-Eleven is doing a great job. They're expanding to 500 more and with their goal in 2025. It says the article covers a little bit that on August 8th, Irving, Texas headquartered 7-Eleven announced plan to expand their 7-fleet diesel network to more than 500 locations. The diesel network was established in 2022 with 240 Speedway stores. Today, the 7-fleet diesel network is made up of more than 375 7-Eleven Speedways and Stripe stores, offering everything from dedicated diesel canopies with high-flowing def, loyalty programs, 4,500 truck parking spaces network-wide and growing, restaurants like Laredo Taco and Raise the Roost Chicken and Biscuits, multiple fleet payment options, merchandise, and dedicated sales team to help make it more expedient than some of the larger truck stops where you get held up. This is exactly what we're looking for, some movement that addresses a couple different things. I mean, I think it's exciting, and I think we need to follow it a little bit more.
I agree. I really want to know if that, diesel that's carrying diesel is actually carrying Slurpees in the back, because that would be pretty dope.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about these locations is you go there to get your diesel, you could get a Slurpee.
That's true. There's nothing that says more America than getting, filling up your diesel at the same time as drinking a nice cherry Slurpee. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is pretty hilarious. So first off, we'll just put up the picture so you can see this, because straight off the bat, this is very impressive, but terrifying at the same time. So Tennessee trooper, not impressed. I'm a little impressed, but I'm not the trooper, so that's probably why that's not my job. Is they checked out they stopped a driver that had a Mountain Dew box.
Mountain Dew can box? I mean,
so first off, my thought is, as I'm talking about it, I'm realizing that's a cardboard piece. That's not like aluminum.
How did they even think this was going to work?
I don't know. So he was trying to cover up. Let's see if I can find it here. He was trying to cover his wheel well cover to stop the leaking, I guess.
A cardboard paper box. I am calling for accountability on natural selection on this. How in the world did somebody think this was going to work? This is what happens when you have puppy mills out there pumping these drivers onto the road with very little experience. I mean, this is unsafe. I'm impressed on the state trooper for pulling the plug on this one. I guarantee this truck was put out of service.
I mean, I don't know if he technically had to pull the plug or if he just had to, remove the cardboard that was there. I mean, how much Mountain Dew is this guy drinking? Maybe he was just looking for a sponsor with Mountain Dew,
Well, all right. So devil's advocate here. Let's say the driver's like, hey, let's put something there so nobody notices. Of all things you pulled from, the bright green box of a Mountain Dew. Like, even if you would have flipped that around, it might have had a better chance of blending in till you got to wherever you were going to get that address. But this is unsafe. And I mean, they did their job on this one. They shut the driver down. Hopefully the driver learned a lesson, and hopefully the company had a hard talk. Cause I mean, this is just bonkers.
It is definitely a little crazy. All right. What's the last article you got for us, Charles?
This one I picked out. It came off CDLLife News, and it's a driver was kicked out of a club and then drove the big rig into the gentleman's club's front entrance. This article came out on August 13th. The Tampa Police Department is investigating a fatal incident involving a semi-truck that occurred early Tuesday at an adult entertainment venue. At 4:19 a.m., police responded at the report of a truck versus pedestrian crash. We already know how that ends. Upon arrival, officers found that the truck had crashed into the front area of the building that leads to the entrance. Witnesses reported the driver had just been kicked out of the gentleman's club and then returned to drive the truck into a group of people standing at the entrance awaiting to get in. Unfortunately, one person was killed during this tragic incident, and the driver of the truck is listed in critical but stable condition. This is one of those things that should have been avoidable, should not have happened. Number one, driver had no business at a club with a vehicle. I'm assuming, and we'd have to look in more, that there was some consumption of alcohol here, because a sane person just does not drive a semi-truck through the front entrance of a strip club.
Yeah, it brings up multiple questions for me. First off, was there better parking there than a lot of places for truck drivers to park? If so, that's a jab. Secondly, was he thinking it was a drive-through? And thirdly, I agree, he must have been very under the influence. That is absolutely crazy. No jokes aside, obviously someone passed away and that's terrible. But yeah, there's some issues going on, man. You got Mountain Dew people, and then you got dudes that are trying to drive up in a strip club. I'm very confused, Charles.
It's 2024. Look forward and stay tuned for 2025. Last year we had murder hornets. Now we got this. No, I mean, in all seriousness, and kind of in line with what we're going to talk about today, time has caused a lot of things to change. And we're going to dive into that right after we get behind the desk with Tenstreet. So now it's time to go with Tenstreet behind the desk. And we got Scott with us. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing very well, Charles. Thanks a lot for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We're talking about it's not a job seeker's market. And who better to talk to than you? You're with the job store.
I am with the Tenstreet job store team. So we have a pretty unique view across the marketplace. I will agree that it's a tepid market for carriers and for drivers right now. I wanted to share a figure, that we're comfortable with. It's fairly surprising to us. We think an experienced driver out there looking for work right now has about 20% less bargaining power than they did 2 years ago, right? So that means they can still mostly write their own check, but there's just less kind of room for negotiation. I mean, we traditionally see this cycle of, hey, once the driver gets more and more experience, they're out there looking for more miles or better CPM, better pay, better home time, whatever it is that's driving, that particular driver. So correspondingly, we're seeing the trend being that those experienced drivers, the drivers who have the most discretion moving across carriers, are electing to stay put right now. Like the grass is simply just not greener on the other side of the road. There's some angles here. I would, as we look at driver application volume, that's tepid to slightly down this time last year. I've certainly seen with Tenstreet's clients in the job store, there's a focus on quality hires, not necessarily quantity of hires, right? They're electing to mitigate some of that downside risk through, the insurance or, the things that come with less experienced drivers or drivers with SAP or something like that. I will just leave everybody here with the takeaway, essentially. We see these figures reflected across cost per hire data as well, right? So when for your recruitment advertising budgets, what folks are electing to spend, they're seeing more on that return, at least in our job store, right? So if you're a carrier out there and you're spending the same that you did 2 years ago, you should be getting more for your dollars today than you were 2 years ago. It's simply a softer market, and your recruitment advertising dollars are going farther now.
At TAFS, we offer unparalleled trucking excellence and service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like fantastic tire discounts and 1-hour advances for quick cash. Recognized as the top factoring company in 2023, we're your partner for success. Access business loans, manage finances with ease through our client portal, F2 fuel card, and mobile app. Contact us now to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
So now it's time to make sense makes sense. And we're talking about it not being a job seeker's market. And there's a lot of things that we are seeing that make that look the way it is. I mean, for those paying attention, at least. One of the things that we're seeing is drivers. Drivers are still showing interest. Drivers are still applying and searching around for that perfect job. But not all of them are getting hired. They're not getting snatched up. Or drivers are also starting to realize that the grass might not be greener on the other side. We heard from our friends over at Tenstreet that drivers right now, according to them, have 20% less bargaining power. You hear me and Paul refer back to the power index, much like the freight index. There's a hiring index that we pay attention to, and it's whether the job seeker or the employer have bargaining power. Right now, it's definitely in the employer's favor, depending on how you look at it. Overall, it's definitely in their favor, but employers are looking for the best of the best, whether it be a driver, office support, or, just anything in any market. I've talked to many people that are hiring right now, and they're looking for, people that can do backflips, bounce a ball off their nose, and jump through a burning hoop. And they can ask that for lesser money right now because there's a lot of people looking for those jobs out there. We've seen people. We had a guest that was supposed to come on today. I might understand why someone's been sitting on the job market 1.5 years because we were going to discuss the fact that, trucking is looking for this perfect type of people. And if you don't fit that mold, you get cast aside. They no-show you. Interviewers are no-showing the applicants' interviews that they've set up. They're not responding at all to people that have shown interest. But then on the other side of this, again, playing devil's advocate here, as an employer, they're setting up interviews that applicants don't show up to. They do onboarding that they don't show up to. They don't even message, call, send a smoke signal or carrier pigeon that they're not calling. So the blame is on both sides. As somebody that does the hiring and somebody that facilitates it, I'm seeing it on both sides. And people have gotten a little bit more callous to this process and lost the appreciation for the process. So, Josh, you and I, we go back and forth on this stuff all the time. We have different views. I'd love to tap you on this one because I tend to take it from the employer standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, even when you brought up talking about they're looking for specific unicorns, perfect people, it actually reminds me of even last week when we were talking on the insurance side. And it's like, if you don't fit the perfect mold, that's another thing that is, in my opinion, going to the employer side and is going against the employee or the person they're looking to hire. That's making it even harder. And I think Paul was even talking about it, that it's just another thing on the job application that you have to go through. That's this massive process that you're still not even guaranteed to get through at the end. It's just another thing stacked against you.
Well, and I think it's indicative of the environment we're in right now. I mean, like, to our point, it's kind of ironic that we were talking about employees, employers, the market, no-shows, stuff like that. And we had one today on the show. But if you look at this stuff and you have these conversations, I talk to applicants all day, every day. A lot of them think that they have that bargaining power. And I guarantee you, if they ask them, they don't think that they've lost 20% of their bargaining power. They think that they have 120% bargaining power right now. And that's not indicative of the market we're in. And the employers, no matter how much they shout that from the rooftops, the applicants aren't understanding it. So you got employers that right now have the power in their court, the ball's in their court, to offer lesser money, to dictate what they're looking for, to look for those unicorns. And it's nearly because they're at capacity, or they don't need to hire, or business is down, so they don't have as much of a demand. So it's just the two sides aren't having the important conversations of, hey, this is it right now, it will change. And the expectations aren't aligned. So we're seeing this clash of cultures right now. And I think it's coming to a head here soon.
Yeah, I mean, even a quick story time is a few years back, I was looking to be hired on at a soccer company that was looking for someone to run their videos because that's what I do. I do video stuff. The the job wanted to pay me for one thing, but have me do 10 other things because they didn't want to pay people, let's say, what they're actually worth or what for their time. And that to me was one of those things that I immediately felt like it was stacked against me, and I had no bargaining power whatsoever to come in and say, hey, can we raise it a little bit? Because that was what was on there. I could see it on the job application. It was worded very professionally. That is, hey, you're going to do 10 jobs and get paid for one.
Well, and you're seeing that a lot. You know, companies that had layoffs and then they've either merged departments to get more work out of them. And you talk to the people, and whether it's true or not, you'd have to look at an individual basis, but their pay didn't change. You got companies out there that are currently hiring for not entry-level positions, but offering entry-level pay. And sometimes it's the hiring process. Like, I've talked to a couple people recently, and hey, I'm paying $60K a year. I'm looking for this not entry-level position. So you have to have a level of expertise and experience, and you're putting them through interview. You're putting them through a second interview, a panel interview, a final interview. Like, there's all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you're paying peanuts. And so it is a clash of culture, because we know work-life balance is important to a lot of job seekers right now. We know for the employers that they got the bargaining power on their side right now, because there's a surplus of people that are looking for jobs, not necessarily out of a job, just looking for new jobs that represent more of what they want. And they're just not aligned very well. So I think we're at this weird employee versus employer game of chicken, and we're about to see who's going to win and which way the needle's going to move. But right now it's in the employer's favor. You got drivers out there. Most of your companies right now are looking for drivers that have less than 3 jobs in 2 years. What? In an industry where drivers have to make lateral moves to get a raise, now we're dinging them for making that lateral move, but no one's dinging the CEO that's ran 3 companies and they've all been shut down. But he's back at a 4th one. No one's dinging that person. So here we are again, this double-edged sword, and I think we're going to pay for it as an industry once things shape up and shake out a little bit.
Yeah, especially when it's like, even looking back, and it's funny because we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, like we both have sons around the same age, and my son is looking at getting a job, right? We started talking about that of a lot of jobs, you need job experience, but you can't get job experience if you don't get a job. But sometimes they won't hire you unless you have the job experience. And it's kind of just this weird cycle. And then on the other side of it, it's like nonstop. I could have filled the entire, probably you too, we could have filled the entire 10-2 News segment with just companies closing, because they just every day I'm seeing new articles pop up of they're shutting down, they're letting more employees go, vice versa. So I agree. I can see it from both sides. I just have a hard time, especially on my side, being more the employee and not so much the employer. I have a hard time sympathizing at times with the carriers, because I see so many times, the same as you are, how they treat drivers at times. Driver Appreciation Week is a prime example, but I'm sure we got an episode of that coming up in the near future.
Yeah, so let's break this down a little bit. All right, drivers. Most carriers right now are looking for a driver with 3 to 4 jobs or less in 2 years. Some are going even 3 years. Then obviously the acceptable records and all of that, yada, yada, yada. Drivers now are looking for home daily. That's always been a conversation recruiters have had. Every driver says they want home daily. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask, but if you don't have it, or you live in Hodunk, middle of nowhere, probably not going to get it. So that's that struggle right there. It's also the pay. The market's not the greatest. So the pay doesn't align with, the prime time rates and everything everyone we're getting and the money drivers we're bringing home. So you see a lot of owner operators that are actually finding it more useful to park those trucks and operate as company drivers, because it's the same money for less risk. So where you are seeing sign-on bonuses applied is in the owner-operator front. Now let's look at the trucking support side. All those other roles, the office, the shop. There's a huge initiative to, hire people in those fronts. They did layoffs. Things started to pick back up a little bit. Now they're hiring. Obviously, we can turn a whole show into the fact that, hey, you let go people that were up here, and now you're offering down here for the same job. But hey, I digress. You're seeing people out there, people with great resumes, great experience, but they're looking for when people were paying, when it was a job seekers market type money, and that's not where the money's aligned. So you're seeing people out there for a year, 6 months, a year and a half. I got a couple friends that have been out there for over a year and a half. I got a couple that have abandoned all hope with trucking. And as soon as they abandoned hope with trucking and applied outside of the industry, they got hired. So what's that tell you? We're talking about how do we keep people in the industry? How do we get people excited? How do you get excited for the fact that you can't find a job? And then you got the new people coming in. I can't tell you as a recruiting company with Hot Seat Services how many student drivers we talk to that the student carriers aren't hiring right now. There's a surplus of students coming in being promised a job as soon as they graduate and get their CDL, and that's just not happening. So it's this weird dynamic we're seeing right now, Josh. And I think, as the year progresses and we get through this election cycle and things start to shake out a little bit, it'll be interesting to see where this all lands. But I think, people can take a couple tips on both sides that can apply to make it a better experience.
Agreed. Well, I don't agree just because I'm going to say I don't agree, because otherwise you're going to give me that smirk that you give me right now. But talking about money, we do need to pay some bills real quick, and then we will just dissect this a little bit more before we wrap this episode up. So let's cut to an ad real quick.
Hot Seat Services has Rent-A-Recruiter.
Wait!
Hey Michael, have you heard that Hot Seat Services Rent-A-Recruiter service will place their staff in your organization similar to a temporary hire model?
No way, what else does it do?
Follow me, I have to tell everyone. They take leads in existing databases to put new hires into your business's trucks.
Well, shiver me timbers! What else?
Come on! Their model is more cost efficient because their recruiters are trained and can get your pipeline flowing easier and faster.
No way. Anything else?
No matter how many hires they make, it's a set cost per week, so the more they get, the better their client's cost per hire gets.
Holy sh**.
For more information and to find out for yourself, go to hotseatservices.com.
All right, before we close this episode out, Charles, we have a couple more minutes, and I wanted to ask your thoughts on relationships in the job market. With this being trying to find jobs, the job seeker market, stuff like that, how much does relationships impact to not building those relationships? And if so, what are some things maybe people that are in a tough situation looking to get, in a better situation, what are some tips to help them out on that? What's your thoughts?
That's a dangerous question. Not many people want to know what I'm thinking. But here it is. Listen, tips. Relationships drive everything. You want to be out there networking, not only on a professional level, but on a personal level. Let people know who you are as an individual. Don't be scared to put yourself out there. Just like I tell our recruiters all the time, get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the nature of the business. Also, be professional. Don't just go posting, hey, your favorite sports team and that. Post the things that interest you professionally. What is your pedigree? Put that out there and flex a little bit. Be proud of it. You worked for wherever you're at in life. You should be proud of that and be willing to flex that a little bit. Leverage your network. Relationships drive everything. I hear about how people are disappointed. You see it on LinkedIn. I've been looking for a job and my network didn't help me. Well, what have you done to help your network? If all you've ever done is go on LinkedIn to post you're looking for a job, is that a network? Seems like a one-sided relationship, and they don't usually survive or amount to anything productive for either party. Leverage your network, but be part of that network. Comment for outreach, comment to share your experiences, share your failures. People can learn from those. And most of all, if you got an interview and something else comes up, send a text, an email, a carrier pigeon. Communication is key in a relationship, and both the employer and the employee need to respect the process for what it is.
All right. I think that was great. But we are just about out of time today, Charles. So why don't you send us on out of here.
Like all good things that have to come to an end, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
I'm Josh Haynes. See you next time.